Hey everyone, my name is Aaron, and this is the ThinkPad X12 detachable Windows tablet from Lenovo. Now they call this Gen 1, but this isn't Lenovo's first stab at a Windows detachable tablet. They came out a few years back with the X1 ThinkPad tablet, which I personally had for a while, and I actually loved it. It was a 13-inch tablet, whereas this new X12 is a 12.3-inch tablet, and it's absolutely no mystery about who they're targeting here. This is built to take a chunk out of those Microsoft Surface customers by offering them an alternative with a ton of similarities, but also just a few differences that might sway some people to choose this Lenovo X12 over the Microsoft Surface Pro. So I picked this up. I've been using it for a couple weeks now, and I just kind of want to tell you what you get with this Lenovo X12 and my personal experience with it over the last 2 weeks. And at any time, if you're not interested in what I'm currently talking about, check out the chapters that I built into the timeline below to get to the content that you want to see. Now you can get this in a bunch of options, starting from the 11th gen Intel Core i3 all the way up to the i7. They all have the same 12.3 inch Full HD 1920 by 1280 IPS screen with 400 nits of brightness. You can choose between 8 gigs and 16 gigs of DDR4 RAM, 256 gigs of PCI SSD all the way up to 512 gigs. And all the options come with the Lenovo Digital Pen and the keyboard inside the box. One thing to note is that on the base model, you only get the Intel UHD graphics, whereas on the other models, you get the Intel Iris Xe graphics. And for pricing, for the base model, you're looking at roughly around $1,100 US. And if you go all the way up to the top model, you're looking at closer to $1,400 or $1,500, depending upon the options you choose. Taking a look at the design of the ThinkPad X12, again, from a distance, you would probably confuse this with a Surface Pro. It looks extremely similar size, similar footprint, even now similar colors that the Surface Pro comes in that matte black as well. Overall, I do love the design. I love that it's 12.3 inches. I think that's a great size for productivity on a Windows tablet, along with allowing for portability. Taking a look at the display, the resolution isn't quite as high as the Surface Pro is. This one comes in at 1920 by 1280, which gives it a 3:2 aspect ratio, just like the Surface Pro. Again, it has an IPS panel, has anti-reflective coating and anti-smudge coating on it. It's obviously a touchscreen, and it gets up to 400 nits of brightness, which is more than bright enough to use in just about any indoor setting. Outdoors, it's a little bit more difficult, but definitely can still be used outdoors if you stay out of direct sunlight. The screen is made out of Corning Gorilla Glass for extra durability. It has average size bezels, maybe a little bit thicker than most laptops these days, but I would say it's very comparable to the Surface Pro. Overall, I would call this a good display. We're not talking 2K or 4K resolution here. It's just Full HD, but I'm just fine with Full HD on a 12.3 inch screen. I still think it looks good and crisp. Text is easy to read. Everything looks clear. For ports, you're looking at a USB 4 Type-C with Thunderbolt 4, a USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type-C, a 3.5mm headphone jack, and there is an option for a nano SIM slot. For cameras, you're looking at a 5 megapixel front-facing camera with IR for Windows Hello. It also has a privacy shutter that you can slide open and close. On the back, you have an 8 megapixel rear-facing camera. For audio, you have Dolby Premium speakers and dual array mics. For battery, they have a 45 watt-hour battery, and in the box you get a 65 watt AC adapter, which does support rapid charging. This also has Bluetooth 5.1, and it does support Wi-Fi 6. For weight, you're looking at 1.6 pounds on just the tablet itself. With the keyboard, you're looking at 2.4 pounds. It's made out of that magnesium alloy that seems to do really well at preventing fingerprints on the casing itself. And of course, on the back, you have that kickstand that folds out, goes almost all the way flat, which is perfect for people that love to draw or take notes with this tablet. And I've used the Microsoft Surface Pros. You can go back through my previous reviews and you'll know that I love the Surface Pros. But I will say that this kickstand is as good, if not better, than the ones that are on the Surface Pros. The hinge is very sturdy, very smooth. There's no wobble to it at all. Very impressed with this kickstand overall. Now the keyboard that comes with it also is made out of that magnesium alloy, which is great for those people that don't really like the Surface Pro's keyboards that come with the fabric. This one does feel a bit more sturdy and it doesn't have quite as much give as the Surface Pro's. But at the end of the day, it is a detachable keyboard, so there is still a bit of hollow feeling to it. The keyboard does have a fingerprint scanner, which is a really nice touch if you don't want to use your face for Windows Hello. It has that ThinkPad red dot in the middle for those that like to use that. It also has a really nice and actually a pretty large trackpad. I'm impressed with the size of the trackpad that they were able to fit on this. The keyboard does have 2 levels of backlighting that you can adjust by pressing the function and the space bar. It also has that magnetic bar so that you can prop up the keyboard and attach it to the bottom of the screen, exactly like the Surface Pro. Overall, again, if I'm comparing this to the Surface Pro, I do like this keyboard just a little bit more. Like I said earlier, also included is the Lenovo Digital Pen. And while I am not a drawer or an artist by any means, this seems like a really great stylus. Taking notes has been a breeze. Even drawing a little bit, it does seem to have low latency. Now this doesn't have a 120 Hz refresh rate, so it's not going to be quite as good as, say, the iPad Pro is. But I did try to capture its latency in a slow-mo video, and you can see, compared to some other styluses, this is really good. So that kind of covers everything that you get in the box. Let's go into my experience with this tablet over the last couple weeks. Now I should mention that I got the base model. I got the Core i3 with the Intel UHD graphics, and if I had to do it over, I probably would have jumped up to the Core i5 with Intel Iris Xe graphics. I think that's worth the price to jump up. But even with the base model, I've been really impressed with the performance of this Lenovo X12 tablet. Day-to-day tasks run perfectly fine. No issues with lag or stutters or crashing. That includes things like web browsing, emailing, using lightweight software, also streaming. When I push this thing a little bit with some Photoshop or video editing, it does seem to work fine when you have just a few layers in Photoshop and 1080p footage video editing. You start to get into some really high resolution photos with a ton of layers, or some 4K footage when you're video editing. You can start to see a little bit of lag. It starts to slow down a little bit, but overall I'm pretty impressed with this Core i3 model, and I'm sure it's even better with the next tier up. And just like the Surface Pro, I'm really enjoying being able to switch from work-related tasks and productivity tasks to more of a tablet-like experience when I'm streaming things like TV shows or movies or YouTube. I just detach the keyboard, prop this up on either a table or on my bed, and I'm set to go. Battery life they quote at 10 hours. I'm seeing a little bit less than that. I'm getting more between 7 and 8 hours when I'm using this throughout the day with those same tasks like emailing, web browsing, light software, occasional Photoshop, and then also doing some streaming. So nothing too intensive, but the nice thing with that rapid charging, you can charge this thing up super fast. You can go from completely dead to 80% battery life in just about 1 hour of charging. So over the last couple of weeks, I've really enjoyed my time with the Lenovo ThinkPad X12. But now I just want to get into who I'd recommend this to and would I recommend it over the Surface Pro. First, who I'd recommend this to, I think it's easy to see that this is a little bit more business orientated than the Microsoft Surface Pro is. First, it comes with Windows 10 Pro. Has some extra security benefits like that webcam privacy shutter, also a fingerprint reader on the keyboard. You have the optional LTE, so you have the ability to stay always connected. And then they just built in some more security features on this, like the discrete trusted platform module, and it also comes with a Kensington lock. Also has that 65-watt rapid charger that comes with it for people that just need a quick juice before they go somewhere. So you can see they're kind of targeting more of the on-the-go professional type of people. Now, would I recommend it over the Surface Pro? I guess it kind of depends on what you plan to be using this for. I think for most people, I would still probably recommend the Surface Pro. I like the screen a lot better on the Surface Pro. I think that higher resolution looks a lot nicer. I also think the battery life is a lot better on the Surface Pro. So I think for most basic users, the Surface Pro is probably the best choice. But if you need that extra security, or maybe you just want that little bit better keyboard that I think the Lenovo X12 has over the Surface Pro, this might be a better option for you. So if you're interested in the Lenovo X12 tablet, I'll put a link in the description below where you can check it out. Thank you for everyone that watched to the end of this video. If you like this video, press that like button. Also consider subscribing. Thanks a lot, guys. And like always, I'll catch you in the next video.